Hi, my name is Natalie Nixon. I am a creativity strategist and the author of The Creativity Leap. I am also the president of Figure Eight Thinking, and I'm really happy to be doing a Creativity Leap chat today with my friend and colleague, Carla Silver. Carla is based in San Francisco, and she's the co-founder and executive director of Leadership and Design. Hi, Carla.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here talking about your book.
Oh, thank you so much for being a big inspiration forward, for taking some time to share some of the resources that you guys use at Leadership and Design. And now I know you've also read through the digital proof because you haven't gotten your hard copy yet. So thank you for doing that.
Of course, it was a pleasure. And by the way, I mean, your work has really inspired leadership and design in many ways. So it's exciting to have a book now that puts it all together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So, Carla, I wanted to ask you some of the questions I've been asking a lot of people, and I'm really curious to hear your responses to these three questions. My first question is, I'd love it if you'd share with us a story about a time when you have made a creativity leap, however you want to define that.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great question. And I mean, there's just at this moment in time, in the middle of this sort of global pandemic, I have to say that we have been on a creativity binge.
Nice.
uh,
Yeah.
I mean, leadership and design, I mean, we actually like to call ourselves Ellen doers.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, my title, can you my title has been head L&Doer, and we joke about that because the name of the organization is L&D, and we talk about doing, right? And so much of what we have to do is actually not sit around and talk about the things that we're going to do, but just actually to act and have that bias to action that designers have to have. And I will say that,
Carla,
yeah.
just for people who may not know, because I didn't actually explain, would you just share really briefly what Leadership and Design does, who you serve?
Yeah, sure. Leadership and Design is a nonprofit organization, and we work with really schools primarily and school leaders all over the country. And we like to say that we create experiences for the people who create the future of teaching and learning. So that's really like what we do. We really design those experiences, and we try to do three things: build capacity, create conversation, and make connections. And that's really like the work of leadership and design. But we're really trying to get people to adopt new ways of thinking and new habits, mindsets, and skill sets that really are really much more relevant for today's teaching and learning.
And you were saying that we've been on a creativity leap binge. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, well, obviously, as the pandemic hit, we realized that schools and school leaders were in a place of having to reimagine teaching and learning faster than they had people to do it and processes and ways to actually get that stuff done. And if there's anything we have learned about working with educators is they love to talk to think. Right? They love to talk.
Think.
They will talk forever, and they like to bring everyone in and just have these discussions. And oftentimes those discussions really don't go very far.
Right.
And so our job has been to really help them build to think, be prototypers,
Nice.
Have that bias to action. And so we've been trying to design, literally, we've been binging on designing new programs for schools and school leaders to really help move them into that space of being builders and tinkerers as opposed to talkers.
Right,
And
right. Easier said than done, right?
Yeah. And I can't even tell you, like, sometimes at the end of a day, my brain just feels like it's going to explode because we've produced 2 or 3 new products or services for school leaders, and they're being consumed by these individuals and these organizations at just like a rapid rate because they need something so desperately. So I can just say that in this moment, we've always been, I think, a relatively creative organization, but we have had to leap super high and super fast.
Yeah, I've been saying that, days of uncertainty are designed for creativity. So it makes complete sense that
Yep.
that's really the mode you're in, kind of on overdrive.
And some of it's been retooling things that we've done to meet this particular moment, but some of it's just been brand new, and stuff that we never could have imagined that we could have done, and we've been forced into it because of this moment.
So when you think about a story to share about a creativity leap that you've made, do you want to share a story around one of those client projects, or is it a different story you want to share?
Um, let's see. No, I mean, I can talk about maybe a specific client product or project that we've been focusing on. I'll just use one example, which has been something called a strategic sprint.
Yes.
Um, so we traditionally have done strategic planning with schools, and it's something that we really have found sort of a process for engaging a lot of stakeholders and really doing some very thorough design, human-centered design work with schools in order to think about the future, really identifying human needs. And it's a long process, and it's very human. And we work with schools, and we go to the schools, and we spend a lot of time with them and with their small design team. And we really work with them on developing ethnographic skills and all these other things. Well, as you can imagine right now, people don't have a whole lot of time to get their schools ready for the fall and to really start thinking incredibly tactically. So we really reimagined something called, we moved from design, sort of strategic design, which is much longer and longer term, to a strategic sprint. We've really had to move people very quickly into major question storming about creating information about the context of the landscape for the next 6 months, and then really slowly beginning to think about what big decisions need to be made, who's going to make them, when do they need to get made by, and then really also teaching them tactically how to move that into, Gantt charts and Slack channels, all the way to, okay, how do you prototype an idea, get feedback, and be able to move it forward with a small group. So I was just on a call with a team, and this was probably the 4th or 5th school we've run through this process. And their ability now to take a massive amount of work and actually deploy it successfully is like, their capacity has grown enormously. They're a small team, but now they have all the tools that they need. And I just don't think, like, that's a great example of something that we had to put together, and really it's useful. It hasn't been done before. It's something that people really need. And I would say we had to both create it out of our heads, but also work really hard to put all the pieces into place. So it kind of is a nice example of that wonder and rigor Venn diagram that really is the heart of your book.
It's also a great example of expression I like to remind people of, which is that creativity loves constraints. So somehow when we have constraints on our time, which is the constraint you're really you're converting into a value add for your clients. When we have constraints on resources of money and constraints on people talent, it's actually, I think we're amazed at that the outcome is actually, it exceeds our expectations than if we had months to work on something, right?
Also, I just want to say, I think there's a chapter in your book that I like so much called Bravery over Mastery, or the concept. And to me, that's so much about what we've had to do. And we've had to say, we can't be masters at something we've never done before. We've just got to be brave and take that leap. And I think for a lot of schools right now, and a lot of organizations, not just schools, it's about saying, we're so used to being masters. We got to unmaster. We actually have a program at Leadership and Design called Unmastered. And it's really about kind of unlearning that need to be perfect at something, and instead being willing to try new things and see what comes from that. So
love that. Yeah, bravery before mastery. Sometimes we have to make that leap and really trust, and then the mastery will come.
totally.
So what about who for you is an example of a wonder mentor, living or dead?
Yeah, it's interesting. I there's a lot of people out there in the world who've been, wanderers like a Leonardo da Vinci. Can't think of anyone more sort of marvelous in terms of thinking about wonder than Leonardo da Vinci. But I would say that in today's day and age, I really love journalists. Uh,
Mm.
and I feel like they've got sort of an insatiable appetite for being curious and learning new things. And right now, I'm just super into Michael Barbaro
You
from the New York
do.
Times. I
Shout out
have
to
like
Michael
such
Barbaro.
a crush on Michael Barbaro in terms of like his ability to just be so curious and ask great questions. I would say the same thing of like Terry Gross too. But I love these people. They're like so thirsty and curious and wonderful and wondering. And so I would throw him out there. And I listen to the Daily almost every day. Sometimes I miss it. And sometimes I look at something and I think, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm interested in that topic. But I am, because they make it so compelling because they are so interested in the topic, So I
Yeah.
listen.
Oh, I love that example. They really do model for us one of the main principles of wonder, which is curiosity and asking better questions. Thanks for that example. I have a professional crush on Michael Barbaro too. So
He's amazing. I just love the way he talks too.
yes, yes, yes. And,
Yep, for
um,
sure.
and then what about your mentor for rigor, a rigor mentor?
Yeah. I mean, this might be an overstated one maybe, but I'm a big Seth Godin fan. And, I've taken the all MBA program and read his blog every single day. And to me, Seth Godin is one of those people who really, he just exemplifies and embodies rigor in a way that when you really see what he produces over time, it's incredible creativity, but it comes from showing up every single day and doing
Yes.
it. So he never misses a day in writing his blog. And people will say to him like, oh, don't you ever feel like you run out of things to say? And the truth is like the reason you don't run out of things to say is because you say it something every day. And that just fuels more interesting things to say every day.
Yes.
And
It
so
forces you to be observant, right?
totally. And so there are days where I read his blog and I think, that was good. And then there are days that I read his blog and I think, oh, that is just absolutely brilliant, right? And so it doesn't have to be that every day is a brilliant day, but you're putting something out into the universe every day. And sometimes you're going to hit something that is absolutely, extraordinary.
I also love you pointing out Seth as an example for rigor because of his book, The Dip. Is it Dip or The Dip?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which is pushing through when you're at a low point, when you feel like you're stalling, when things just seem to be going awry. But that book and the principles, and he's the author of it, really also points out the value of that disciplined, one foot in front of the other. It's not sexy, but it's very intentional, it's very deliberate, and it's just about consistency. So
Yeah.
great example.
Yeah. I mean, in general, he reminds me of like an endurance athlete. And I'm an endurance athlete. I'm a runner. I've run for many years. But I really do think that, using that same level of just like, every day showing up and every day putting in the miles and every day you get a little closer. And I just feel like Seth Godin is just right. It's a great model for me. I'm not as disciplined as Seth Godin is, but I aspire.
It's a mentor. It's aspirational. So good
Exactly.
to have it in our mind. So thank you for those examples. So we're at the end of our chat, and I wanted to ask you if any final thoughts, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Oh gosh. Well, I would just say I just really appreciate this framework. I have been thinking a lot about it, about this wonder rigor framework. And I just, creativity is defined so many ways by so many people. But I think this is just a perfect addition and contribution to the conversation around creativity. Because, creativity, as you said, is not just something that you just like oh, it's not a froofy concept. It does require that combination of really being willing to be imaginative with the ability to really do the hard work. And so I just thank you for offering this book to all of us.
Thank you. That's really high praise coming from you, Carla, and I appreciate the feedback and really appreciative of your time today. So thank you.
Of course. Oh, thank you, Natalie. Best of luck.
Thanks. You too. All right.